Hey YouTube, it's Charlie from Reader Turned Writer, and today I am doing my 500 subscribers Q&A. I wanted to say thank you so much for subscribing to my channel, for supporting my videos, for commenting and engaging and just being my friend, and for all of the support that I've received here. This community is just so wonderful, both booktube and authortube. I have absolutely loved it, and I just think that you guys are just amazing, and I'm so glad that I get to be a part of this. So thank you for that. And I did a Q&A announcement video, and I also did a post on Instagram, and so that's where I'm getting the questions from. So I'll just jump right into the questions. I'll start with the ones on YouTube and then head over to Instagram. So the first question is from Zena's Books, and she asked, what is the most challenging part of drafting? And she asked a couple questions. Do you snack while you write, and what snacks do you snack on? Oh, and what's your favorite part of drafting? So my favorite part of the writing process is not drafting, like first drafts, but my favorite part of drafting is probably when you just get into that flow, when the scene just comes. Sometimes it feels like you are literally like ripping the words out of your brain and have to like get every single word to come out, you know, clawing your way through the draft. But sometimes it's like something about the characters or what's happening in the plot, and it just almost writes itself, and that's my favorite part of drafting. And my least favorite part is actually sitting down to do it. It can be just so anxiety inducing for me sometimes to sit down and do it. And the way I've combated this, I don't know how you pronounce that, would be what I do is I have my outline, and I look at my outline, and then I go, okay, I know what I'm gonna write next, and then I write it, and that really helps me, so I'm not just like, I don't know what I'm doing with this draft, I don't know where I'm going with it or anything, and that just helps like lower the anxiety for me. And usually once I start writing, it's not like hard anymore. It used to be, I had kind of taught myself to have the anxiety during my writing sessions, and I had to kind of unlearn that. I did that with my writing habit, but I feel like I'm to the point now where I can sit down, and once I actually sit down and start, I enjoy it a lot more, but the sitting down part is hard. I don't really snack while I write. I do snack while I read. I love eating candy and just snacky things while I read, treats and stuff while I'm reading, but I do not really snack while I write. Sometimes I will write while I'm eating breakfast in the morning, because my kids are usually occupied at that time with something, like their own breakfast, or sometimes we'll watch like educational shows in the morning so I can shower real quick or something, and if they're still watching one of those, then I can get quite a few words in while I'm eating breakfast. But I don't do that because I want to be eating while I'm writing. I just do that because it's convenient. And so if I write at a time when I'm not normally eating, I don't usually snack. And so then what snacks? I don't snack. So thanks for the question. Again, thank you again, all of you who submitted questions, because I loved all the questions. It was fun to see them. Kelly Martin at Kelly Martin Books. She asked, how do you think your writing routine will change with another little human in the house? And this is a very good question. I have no idea. I am a little bit anxious, I guess. Not anxious, but we'll see how the first year goes, because the first year with the baby can be really hectic and challenging. New babies just require a lot of time and attention, and we're also homeschooling our two older kids. We're homeschooling them. My oldest is turning 7 soon, and then we also have our toddler who's 3 and is quite the handful. So we'll see how it all goes, but I think that I will just keep trying to have a goal of 500 words, or editing for 30 minutes, or whatever stage I'm at, and just give myself grace. I do know that as we transition, because I am about to have the baby, while I'm filming this, I'm 38 weeks, so we are about to have the baby. We could have him at any time now. I plan on taking the first month off, basically like September. I don't plan on writing on my novel. I do have like kind of a side project that my husband and I have been working on. It's kind of like an information game, and it requires some writing, and it's like a murder mystery information game, And so I will I want to keep my writing habit where I work on writing every day, but I'll work on that. I won't have a word count goal. My goal will just be to open it up and work on it a little bit, or even just read through what I have in the past and stuff. And because it's kind of like a fun project, no pressure or anything, I think that it will be a good way to keep my writing habit while also taking a little bit of a break while I'm in that first month transition. Especially the first couple of weeks can be kind of, you know, you're just exhausted. And then after that, we'll see how it goes. I do still want to finish my first draft this year, and I am past the midpoint, but I still have half the book to write, you know. And so October, November, and December, I'll be working on writing the ending. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to get through that kind of quickly because the ending does tend to be easier for me than the middle. So once I get past the middle part, then in December, you know, November, December, I can finish up the ending and hopefully finish that quickly so I can finish the whole first draft this year. And that's my biggest goal. So I totally messed this up, but that question was actually from Laurel Mooring. And Kelly Martin's question was, do you read books in the genre you write in while you're writing? For example, are you reading books in the genre you're writing now while writing your book? It's hard for some authors and some prefer it. So I don't really worry about this too much. I read a really wide variety of books, genres, age group, everything, and I do that on purpose. I try and read very broadly, and I'm able to do that because I am able to read a lot of books each month. I honestly don't actually think about it. Like right now I'm writing a YA fantasy, and while I've been writing it, I have read some YA fantasy, and I've actually been able to pull some inspiration from some of those books. For example, one of the Darker Shade of Magic books kind of helped me realize what was wrong with the beginning of my book, and I was like, not that I'm like copying them or anything, I was like, I recognized what they were doing, and I was like, oh, I figured out what my problem is. And that's a YA fantasy book, but it's also really different from the kind of book that I'm writing. And so, because mine's like a fairy tale retelling fantasy book, and so yeah, I don't actually really worry about it. I don't try to read books in that genre, but I also don't avoid them. IJ King asked, how do you make or find the time to read? And do you ever look back on your bookish stats? And I love bookish stats. I keep track of them in my bullet journal throughout the month, and then at the end of each month I go through and I tally everything up and make a whole video about it because I love numbers and stats, and I'm really nerdy that way. How do I find and make time to read? So one of the things that I do is I read ebooks, physical books, and audiobooks, and I'm pretty much always reading one of those. And that just gives me, like, if I'm at the store and I'm in line, or, you know, I've gone to pick up a pizza and they're making the pizza or something, then I can sit there for the 5 or 10 minutes or whatever and read on my phone instead of getting on Facebook or something. Or if I am driving in the car by myself or cleaning the house or something, I can turn on my audiobook. Or, you know, at night when I get in bed, I can pull out my hard copy. And so that way I have a book for basically any situation that I get into. I do read on my phone. I do want to get a Kindle for nights because my husband and I are trying to avoid screens at night to help our sleep and stuff. And so I'd love to get a Kindle to read at night and on my scriptures in the morning that has a light. I also use the Kindle app on my phone, so I basically always have a book with me. I also take advantage of small amounts of time to read. So let's say, you know, I have 10 minutes to sit down. I'm totally fine using that 10 minutes to read, and I'm also okay reading when there are other people or like my children are playing or something. So like I can take my kids to the park, and then as long as I, you know, keep an eye on them, especially my 3-year-old, so that she doesn't wander off or something, I can pull out my book and I can read while they're playing, and that's really nice. But I just basically try to have my default be reading. So when I have free time, I try to have my default be, okay, I'm gonna open up a book, rather than getting on Facebook or something like that. And I think that doing that is really useful. And then finding blocks of time when I can read, like before bed. I pretty much always read before bed, kind of thing. And that just gives me consistency where I'm reading every single day. Meredith at Meredith Phillips writes, she asked, you read a huge variety of genres as well as age ranges. Do you have story ideas for all of those various genre age categories, or do your ideas primarily stay within one or two of these areas? And how do you keep track of story ideas? Or do you? I do keep track of story ideas. I use a list app, like an organizing app, I guess, called Quip. And I just have all of my lists organized into different folders there. And I have a folder for like my YouTube and writing stuff. And I have a list where I just keep track of it there. I also actually have a list in my bullet journal, but I don't use it as often. It's mostly on my phone because if I get ideas, I put it on my phone because I have my phone with me. I have a variety of ideas. Most of my ideas are not necessarily genre specific. I'm usually looking for what a lot of people call hooks, which is like a standard and then like a twist that you can add to the standard. And I want to stay with retellings for now, and so pretty much all of my ideas have to do with retellings and like a twist that I could put on that retelling. But actually most of them don't have, like, I could put them in almost any genre, although some of them do have some genres, but the main genres would be fantasy and contemporary. I have ideas for middle grade and YA, but I don't actually have any for adult as of right now. Joey Paul asked, how do you juggle mom life with writing? How did you start writing, and what drew you to your current work in progress? So the way I juggle mom life with writing is I write when the kids are awake, but I try and make sure that they have some sort of thing to occupy them, whether that's breakfast or a show, or they're playing already, or I send them to a friend's house or something like that. I also will write, I've tried writing at different times of the day, like morning before they wake up. That's worked well for me in the past. Right now I do other stuff before they wake up, but I really liked writing before they woke up because it was uninterrupted time. Like I said, like I'll write often during breakfast, or I will also write in the afternoon. Sometimes, like while my younger two are still eating and my oldest is practicing piano, I will pull up my book because she's pretty independent with piano practice as long as I'm in the room. Yeah, so I kind of try and do it, and I just have to be okay with being interrupted sometimes when I'm writing because sometimes they need me, and that's just how it is. How did I start writing? I started in probably like 6th grade. I carried around a giant binder of a book that I was writing based off of a game that my brother and I would play as children, and then I kind of stopped. And I think just because I read so much, my husband is and his family are very creative people, and so they're always finding things about, you know, creating art just in general, and like whether that's video games or photography or writing or whatever. And my sister-in-law writes, and so I think I just kept getting pulled back to it, and it was because I read so much. It's just something that I wanted to do. And what drew me to my current work in progress, it was just the idea. I'm writing a Cinderella retelling, and I'm calling it my con artist Cinderella book. So it's like if Cinderella, you know, what if the prince was being conned by the girl who had the glass slipper? I built my book around that hooker idea. Kaylee at Luminous Libro asked, what author do you accidentally find yourself mimicking their writing style when you write? I don't know that I actually do. I have in the past, like especially as a child. I remember when I was reading Lemony Snicket's books, going to the computer and writing some, and then being like, holy cow, I'm writing like he does, you know. And I'm sure it probably happens to me sometimes, but I don't feel like it happens very often to me. And then she also asked, what is your favorite book to read to your kids, and what is their favorite book? So we have so many books that we love, and I'm actually going to do a whole video about some of my favorite children's books really soon. They each have kind of their own favorites. Ashton, my 7-year-old, she is less into picture books, but she really loves Mo Willems. She loves to read them or have me read them to her, especially the Piggy and Elephant ones. Parker, some of her favorites would probably be like anything with princesses. She loves Fancy Nancy, Pinkalicious, those kinds of books. And then my youngest, she likes Halloween books. So she likes Go Away, Big Green Monster, Berenstain Bears in the Spooky Old Tree, Pumpkins Everywhere, Hey, That's My Monster. You know, she loves kind of creepy, scary, like not scary, but like more Halloween-y type books. Nicole Wilbur asked, how do you manage to film YouTube videos with little ones? And that is a good question because it has become a real struggle as I have gotten more and more kids since I've started my YouTube channel. When I first started BookTube, we had just the two, and they were both napping still, and you know, it was kind of like I just used their nap time to do YouTube. I also wasn't writing or homeschooling or anything at the time, so I just felt like I had more time for it. Now I am about to have my fourth child. My two oldest do not nap anymore. We're homeschooling, so they're always home, and that takes up a lot of my time as well. And I'm trying to write and do my writing group and everything like that. So it has definitely gotten harder. I have had to lower my expectations. I no longer do 2 videos a week. I just do videos. I try and do 1 video a week, but sometimes that doesn't happen, and it's basically my lowest priority, so if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I've also tried doing videos that take more work, and I've had to step back and say, you know, I can't really do that, so I tend to do videos that take a little bit less work. I still try and film during my youngest nap, and I try and find a way to occupy my older two, whether it's sending them in the backyard. If they're at a friend's house, that's a really good time for me to film, or I will turn on a movie for them. Right now they're watching Rescue Riders. And you know, sometimes when you want to get something done that you want to make sure the kids aren't going to sit and fight or eat all of the cheese sticks out of the fridge or something, you have to find ways to occupy them. And I don't feel like we watch excessive TV, and so I'm okay turning on a show for them sometimes. I also batch record, so I will, when I'm going to record, I'll sit down and I'll say, okay, the next 4 or 5 videos for the upcoming month, I'm just going to do them all at once. So I can turn on a show for my kids, and they can watch it for an hour and a half, and then I can turn it off, and then I can edit while they're doing other stuff, and that's totally not a big deal. It's literally just filming that I'm like, okay, I want to make sure they're occupied with something. Then she also asked, who is your favorite book character and why? This is a really hard question because I have a lot of favorites. I would probably pick Ella from Ella Enchanted, and that's just part of it's the nostalgia. I just grew up, she was such a role model for me. I wanted to be her. I love Char. I love that they get together, you know, kind of thing. And it was just my favorite book growing up. But I also love a lot of Shannon Hale's characters. Brandon Sanderson has amazing characters. There's just so many good ones out there that it's really hard to pick. Misty at Woodland Mist asked a couple questions. She asked, do you see yourself writing in multiple genres over the course of your career? And I would say yes. She said, if so, which ones? Same goes for age categories. And I would say yes. I could see myself writing definitely both middle grade and YA, and I could see myself writing adult books potentially. I could see myself writing in almost any genre. Historical fiction would definitely be one that I would want to do when my kids were way older because of how much time the research would take. But I could definitely see myself writing a lot more in fantasy and contemporary. I don't know that I would do a lot of sci-fi, but I definitely want to do mystery because I love mystery. I love reading mystery books, and so I think that mystery would be really fun. Then she asked, how do you fit in lots of reading into your day-to-day? And I did kind of already answer this one previously. She asked, what is the thing you look for first when you are looking for new books to read? Like, what gets your attention for when you're looking at a book? So obviously the cover and title are a big deal. Things that I recognize, so if I've heard people talking about it on BookTube or Bookstagram, then I am much more likely to gravitate towards that book. The cover really has a big hold over me. I don't know how to describe what I like in a cover. There are certain covers that really draw me to a book. Yeah, the description does, but you have to actually get drawn to it before you know the descriptions. And then she asked, if you could only read one genre for the rest of your life, what would it be? I don't know if I could pick. That's too hard, but I would probably say fantasy because I have to read all of Brandon Sanderson's cosmic books, and his are fantasy. And a lot of retellings are also in the fantasy genre, and I like that. And then her last question is, what is the perfect dream team of elements a book would ideally have for you to love it? So the number one thing is the character arc. The character arc and growth are really important to me. Character interactions are also super important to me. If the book has really good character interactions, like two characters that are together that are like really different in personality or that kind of thing, and then it's kind of funny, I really like that. I really like strong female characters, not necessarily like people talk about how like they don't have to be like men strong, you know. Like Shannon Hale, I feel like writes really strong females and female friendships, and I really love that. I think basically characters are just the most important thing for me. Leah Britt Jones, she was actually my former dance teacher growing up. She was my dance teacher for a very, very long time, and she commented a question on here, and she said, Do you miss Irish dance? And the answer is, oh my goodness, yes. So I grew up about 3 hours away from where I'm living, and I did Irish dance there. And because we moved, I can't do dance with them anymore, and there's not really an Irish dance place here, and I'm definitely not going to like start one here right now because my time's already limited doing the YouTube and writing stuff that I'm doing, but I do miss it so much. I miss it for my girls too, because if we lived where I grew up living, they would probably be in Irish dance right now. That is something that I miss a lot. The community, just going every week, the exercise, the motivation to exercise, and it was just the funnest thing ever. If you ever have a chance to take Irish dance, I would highly recommend it. And then she said, you should write a middle grade novel about a dancer, and I actually have a couple ideas for books that have like the main protagonist as an Irish dancer kind of thing, and I do hope to write at least one book about that someday. And then H.A. Pruitt, Anathalian, I'm sorry I butchered the name. That's the name of her book that she has self-published. Oh, she said she put it on Instagram. So this is the last comment, so I'll go over to Instagram now and find it. She asked how I organize before starting to write. There's two ways you could take this question. How do I organize before writing my draft? And for that, I brainstorm a whole bunch. And then I actually use this last novel, I used the Save the Cat beats, and filled them in as much as I could with what I had brainstormed, and then I found any holes and filled those in, and then I took each of those beats and tried to break them down into the individual scenes. The only way I organize before each writing session, I open up my computer, I open up my outline, and I have that divided into the 3 acts. So right now I'm writing Act 2, so I open up my outline for Act 2, and I find the section that I'm at, and after I finish a section I just gray it out, so then it's really easy to find where I'm at, and then I open up my document and I write. And then after I finish a chapter, I actually move that into a separate document for my writing group to look at, and I have a blank document because sometimes I use Google Docs, and when it starts to get really long it gets laggy and I hate that, and so I try and keep what I'm working on like a smaller document. Elena Carter, author, on Instagram, she said, what do you like most about writing? And for me, the thing I love most about writing is having done it. I love, there are parts of the process that are really satisfying to me. Editing and outlining are both really satisfying to me. And I am learning to really enjoy the drafting process again, and different things, and I'm learning to brainstorm better and things. And those all have their own things that are really fun about them. But I just love looking back and thinking, I wrote an 80,000 word book, and that sense of accomplishment is just amazing to me. And even if it's not good enough to publish, which it is currently not good enough to publish, it doesn't actually matter, because I'm very proud of the fact that I did that, and I love that I am continuing to do that I'm honing that skill of writing, and that I'm getting better at writing and stuff. Author Anne Sophie, she asked, how have your writing and reading habits and preferences changed since you started your channel and documenting your journey? This is a good question. So I was already doing YouTube when I started writing, but I do feel like it has been an extra motivation for me to continue writing and not give up on it, getting into AuthorTube, and that it does motivate me to write, because I know if I don't write, then on Instagram or YouTube I have to tell people I didn't write, I didn't get my words in. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I always do it then, it's just extra motivation for it. My reading habits have changed quite a bit. I used to read tons and tons and tons when I was younger. Clear up through high school, I just read so many books. And then I went to college, and of course they have assigned reading, and I was away from home in my home library, and I just didn't really use the library as much then. And even after I got married, we just didn't use the library very much at first. I would buy ebooks or find free ebooks, and I still read, and we would go to bookstores and buy things like Brandon Sanderson books, but the amount of books that I was reading went way down during that time period. When we moved to the town that we're in now, I made it a priority to get a library card, partially because I wanted to make sure I was taking our daughter to the library. She was about 1 at the time that I got the library card, I think. Going to the library just opened up the opportunity to read more books, you know, and the fact that I was using the Kindle and stuff. And then I started reading more, but I actually was reading a lot of nonfiction at the time that I started my BookTube channel. But then getting into BookTube, it kind of opened up the world of fiction for me, and it made it possible for me to find a lot of books that I really wanted to read that were novels. And I think that was one of the biggest things holding me back, is that I would just, you know, even just browsing through the library, it was really hard to find books that I was like, yeah, I really want to read this. And especially free books on Kindle, it was just hard to find a book where I was like, I want to read this. And I feel like BookTube has done that for me. And now that I've also started spending more money on books, you know, whether that's ebooks or audiobooks or even just buying books, because there are certain ones that I want to read, and we just have decided to spend money in that area. And of course I try not to spend too much. And we definitely do utilize the library a ton. And we have a really good library here. It's a smaller city, but it is one of the best libraries. I think it's better than some of the libraries out where I grew up, which is a much more populated area. It's just amazing. And I have never requested a book at the library and not had them get it. I don't know how you say this. Have LAHMCLAT writer. She asked, what are your favorite genres? I would say mystery, fantasy, sometimes contemporary. It kind of depends on the contemporary. Like, I've recently really gotten into rom-coms. Anything that's a retelling I tend to really love, but those are probably my 3 absolute favorites. I also really like romance, but I don't like reading about like sexual scenes, and so it has to be kind of like sweet romance or closed door romance, those kinds of things. And that was the last question. This is a really long video. I don't know how much I'll be able to edit it down and condense it, but if you have stuck with me through all of those questions, thank you. Hopefully this was kind of a fun video. You got to know me a little bit better. If you want to answer, just drop your answer to one of these questions for yourself in the comments below, then I can get to know you a little bit better too. If you want to follow my reading journey more closely, you can head over to Goodreads. I do leave a review for every book I read there. I also share my favorite books to Instagram, as well as talk about my writing journey more on Instagram, and I'll link both of those in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe for lots of reading and writing content. Again, thank you so much for all of the support. I am just so grateful for this community and everything that you guys have done to support me and include me and just be my friend. And thank you so much for watching my video. I will see you in the next one.